Okay, so welcome back to the vlog. It's been just over 2 weeks since I filmed the last one and about 3 days since I edited it. And today I'm actually at the Sion Hill campus of Bath Spa University. Yeah, and I'm filming this on a camera that I've borrowed, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out. So the last 2 weeks. The first week was pretty much taken up with Community of Objects. I gave a presentation on this at Open Scores Lab at Bath Spa University last Wednesday. Which also incorporated a performance for 2 people, and thank you to Richard Hughes and Alex Marr for performing that for me, and they did a great job. It was really interesting actually doing it for 2 people because I wanted to keep it short, so we ended up with only 6 boxes, but it was quite a different experience trying to work out what should go in the boxes from doing it for larger groups and larger numbers of boxes, because sort of trying to think about how many things are going on at any given time, balancing things that are happening with silences, and just the general texture of the thing. And when you've only got 2 people, the chance of 2 people at once getting a silence or near silent activity is quite high, so it felt quite different to design what was going in the boxes for that. But I was very pleased with the performance. I did feel that possibly it could have been a bit longer, simply because I think the act of getting to grips with the piece when you haven't performed it before just takes a little bit of extra time, but there were some really great moments in there that I was very, very pleased, especially the end of it, and I'm hoping I can add in the footage from that performance here. Along with that, I've been thinking, I sort of took a stand and said that Bastard Assignments won't do it again, I won't do it again, and then I was thinking after that, actually it could be possible, I think, if somebody else filled the boxes. So I've been thinking about what that would actually mean to have someone else fill the boxes, or possibly even make them, if they're brave enough, and how that might change the piece, how it might be still mine or no longer mine, yeah, what that would mean to have somebody else's personality be the content of the piece. I've streamlined the performance notes a bit. I've got in a sort of a strange place where I'm a bit confused about whether the performance notes are still performance notes or if they are actually the score. I don't really have any conclusions about this yet, I'm still working on it. But I've streamlined them a bit down from, I think, 5 pages to 3 pages, but they're still far too wordy, and I want to take it even further. I met an artist last week, and this sort of question of words and wordiness came up in a conversation, and she suggested that poetry might be useful to look at, so that's on my list of things to contemplate. I'm not about to start writing verse scores anytime soon, I can pretty much guarantee that, but I think it could be useful in terms of thinking about how to express things concisely and while being elegant. I think that could be useful. Whitespace, there hasn't been any actual progress on this piece in terms of doing things or changing the way I'm thinking about it or anything like that. However, we are planning on doing a couple of runs at that. Bastard Assignments is going to Snape Maltings at Aldeburgh next week we've got 4 days there. So I'm thinking about doing a couple of versions of it there with them and just see where that ends up. So I've got another score I need to make for that in the next week. I had been wondering whether I might make a tape part for it and make it a bit more sort of something that could go on a stage, but I think I've actually decided against that. I entertained that idea for about a week, and then I thought actually I quite like it being the simple thing that it is. It may come back again, but I think at the moment that idea is out the window. Also for Aldeburgh, we're going to attempt a version of Dot Drip Line Line, which I don't think has actually appeared on this vlog yet, but it's on my website. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah, so I've got the lads some notebooks and they're off busily doing their notebook process. I've started making an attempt to get back into it. I have about the same number of pages left in my book as they have in their entire books. So I've been trying to do that, but I've been away for a few days and I'm not quite sure I'm going to make it. It's been a bit strange trying to get back into the headspace of that piece, which was from so long ago now. I think it was about 6 months ago I was working on that, and sort of try to pick up where I left off and come up with new ideas based on the same thing. So yeah, I haven't been particularly pleased with anything I've done on that yet, but I think there's enough there still to work with from what I was doing before, and of course we'll have whatever the guys come up with in their books as well. The altered book, which I mentioned last time, has had a few new pages. I've mostly been working with text in that and thinking about how to work with text. My process in my notebooks tends to be very, very wordy. I tend to write pages and pages and pages and pages of things, trying to sort out my ideas. So I've been sort of thinking about how that can work when there's already text on the page and there's already a narrative in the book and there's this structure in place. And obviously writing on top of writing isn't particularly legible. So I've been experimenting a bit with just actually working with that, writing on top of writing on top of writing, and kind of skipping the legibility part and seeing whether it's as effective to just do the writing without being able to read it later, or if actually I need to come back to it. So I've made a few sort of attempts at this to see where that ends up. No conclusions yet, but I'm still tinkering with it and trying out different alternatives. The latest one has been to do the writing but take notes on post-it notes while I'm doing it and just keep those beside it so that I'm pulling out the salient points of what I'm writing and I'm not losing those even when I don't actually need I think that would have ended up about 8 pages worth of writing all on top of each other on one page. And the final thing to talk about was, I don't know if you recall, but many moons ago I was working on a piece where I was rolling around the floor in the studio, which was at the time sort of consisted of layered video. There was quite a bit of discussion with the bastards about this. Josh came up with a beautiful idea, which was to kind of reorient it, reshoot it, and have that be projected vertically, and while I did a live performance mirror image lying on the floor in the venue, which I really, really liked, and I still really, really like, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with at the time. And Tim suggested doing something with costume, and while he suggested maybe something to do with business attire or whatever, it didn't quite feel right. I wasn't sure what that was actually saying about the piece, and at that point I got a bit stuck. And I've been thinking about this piece on and off ever since then, which was, I think, April, maybe. So it's been quite a while it's been stewing, and this week I was coming back to this costume idea, and having been so immersed in the whole papery business of community of objects, and I was sort of thinking back to some of the video documentations I did early last year, and I kind of got to a point of wondering whether the costume might be some sort of dress with a paper layer over it. And I'm thinking there could be sort of additional bit to the video that involves sort of documenting the kind of drawing I do and dripping ink and that kind of thing, with like live dripping ink down the paper. Thinking about different types of papers and what that might do, what kind of sounds they'll make, which would be a way of getting the sound back into the piece, because I was having trouble finding the sound in that one. So this could be one of those completely nuts ideas that you never hear of again, but it feels like I've broken through something a bit. I'm much happier about it. Yes. So that's about it for the fortnight. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye.